But joining us now quickly by phone, Michael O'Hanlon. He is Director of Foreign Policy Research at Brookings. Michael, aside from the F-bomb there at the end of that press conference, what were your takeaways?
You know, I think it's fine. President Trump has the right framework, the right mental model for how to think about what he's trying to do. I still think the odds are against him. You know, I think that threatening tomahawk missile transfers to Ukraine pushes in the right direction, but in the absence of a more concerted economic strategy for pressure, I still think that Putin's likely to wait Trump out. Trump seems aware of that possibility. He was asked directly if he thought he was being played and Putin was playing for time, and he acknowledged that possibility, but also expressed confidence in his own ability to sort of sniff that out and respond accordingly. So I think his overall framework for approaching the war is the best it's ever been, and generally speaking, pretty good. But I still think the odds are long of getting any kind of near-term ceasefire. Talking
about specific weapons, quantity, quality, whatever it might be, this is normally fairly secretive stuff. My take, and tell me if you agree or not, Michael, is that clearly these types of press conferences, they know the Russians are watching and listening. They are negotiating in public because they are trying to effectively affect an outcome, I think, with Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a very crisp and cogent way to put it. And Trump would prefer not to transfer the tomahawks. He realizes there are dangers of escalation from the Russian side, maybe even against NATO territory if that happens. But he's also not willing to be cowed by that kind of an implied Russian threat. And he's willing to do a deal and call off the tomahawks. So again, I think it would be more effective to also combine the military threat with greater economic pressure. But we'll see. Maybe that comes later.
Like what? What would you do? What economic pressure can we apply?
There are at least three big categories. One of them is another aid package, another U.S. assistance package for Ukraine that shows that we're really committed to this. A second is to coordinate the listings of illicit ships that the United States and Europe and others are trying to prevent from trading in Russian oil so they can avoid the oil price cap. And the third is to develop a more concerted international sanctions campaign. We don't do much trading with Russia, but of course other countries do. And I think it's time to talk to not just India, but also China about a strategy whereby they would consider reducing their economic interaction. And you threaten secondary sanctions if you don't get that kind of help. But first you try to develop a strategy. So those are the different pieces. Not all of them have to happen at the exact same minute, and they can be phased in. But I think President Trump is a little too fixated on just the tomahawks plus his personal rapport with Putin. I don't think that's going to be enough.
The Russia oil price cap is, the price of oil is currently pretty much at the price cap. Europe lowered that recently to the mid-$46 range, trying to apply more pressure. I want to go to your second point because a couple years ago, I think we were the first or one of the first to report on that so-called ghost fleet of Russian ships, actually named some of the ships that were being bought. I got that from a source, Michael. These ships are, we call them a ghost fleet because some of them are uninsured or they're insured by Russia. They're kind of going around the world with their transponders off. What could we do to some of these ships, which are largely old and frankly, probably fairly dangerous to be on the water in the first place? What could we do that would economically impact Russia?
Well, as my colleague Ben Harris and Robin Brooks have documented, if you can get more of these ships onto the international sanctions list and we coordinate that list with our European allies, you get to the point where those ships can no longer obtain insurance. And therefore, they're, not really able to sail any longer, do business with countries like India and China that would expect that kind of preparation. And so it's not going to be an either or where you shut it down entirely. And congratulations to you for tracking the issue for so long, because it's going to be an incremental ongoing process. But right now, there are some sanctions on certain ships that we choose to penalize or ostracize. Europeans have a different list. By coordinating and making sure that both the lists are as comprehensive as possible, we prevent Russia from evading the price cap. And, that's especially important when perhaps the price cap number, as you say, goes down further.